Hello, what's up? So this video is that history classes in school, when you study history, part of the study of history should include the future, the study of the future prediction. When I was in school, I'd like to get my hands on what classes I took throughout my school, like see if the government, the Department of Education has that information, and if they don't, I'm gonna make videos causing some serious beef with those motherfuckers because, I mean, if we spend ass fuck tons of money on the government spying on our asses and on 20% of our budget on defense, and supposedly the government knows everything about you, well, they should sure as fuck know what classes you took when you were in school, and how fucking hard can that be? But I need to do that so that I can analyze the educational system and analyze how it needs to change and all that stuff. I need the data. And I mean, like I took the SAT in high school, and then I tried to get my score because when I first got the score back, I didn't look at it because I didn't give a fuck about that shit then. But then a couple of years later, I was curious, but I couldn't get my hands on it. There was some office at the University of Colorado where I took it, and there was some lady who's supposed to work there, but they weren't going to give you their number, and you knew what office it was, but it was some hole in the wall office, and you never knew what the hours were. And I guess they did have the hours, but I'd show up there all the time and like wait around. There's nobody there, and so there's no way for me to know what my SAT score was. So, but that's another video. Basically, whoa, I got sidetracked. Oh shit, I didn't turn my thing on. Oh well, this probably won't go over 50 minutes anyways. Yeah, because when I'll just go off memory. My classes that I took in the past, well, too many of them were math, which was ridiculous. And then as far as history, I remember for a quarter, like you have schools in a year, and then you have them divided up into semesters and then into quarters. So for one quarter, we had like U.S. government, which was kind of like history. And then in 10th grade, I think for the whole year, I had that class. It was history of the world. Start with the cuneiform and work all the way up. But then after that, I didn't have anything. So in all of my schooling, well, of course, in grade school, you have some like sections in history, but you kind of don't remember that because it's all melted together. And then when you get to 7th grade, that's when you divide it up into classes and you can remember. But basically, out of all the classes I had from 7th grade to 12th grade, I had about one year worth of history, and then another quarter of, I think it was like U.S. government, which is kind of like history, which is fucked. You need to have at least one history class per semester. You need to always be having a history class. History is the most important subject because it's where all the other subjects come out of. Like, modern psychology is rooted in 100 years ago with Freud. If you want to study math, well, you want to know who invented it and how they invented it. It's gonna, because you can, because surely algebra started by Al-Habreen or whoever in 12th century Iraq, invented it for a reason and started with the really simple algebra and moved on. You just plug that in with history, and history ties all the subjects together, which is gonna make people's ears prick up, and that's what you want. You want kids' ears to be pricked up, so that by the time they get out of school, they want to keep learning, and they're not like, no, none of that. All I want to watch is a reality show. The more shallow it is, the better, because my brain overheats if you're gonna do this subjects. Because I remember school, Yeah. So, I mean, what else? Like astronomy, with Galileo, finding out that that there was, moons going around Jupiter, and that our moon is just a rock up there in the sky, and then that evolves into now every subject that you could study now. Law, from like 1600s England, where laws were just a collection of like, of all the verdicts that they gave on stuff. And so they'd be like, well, what's this case like? Oh, it's like this one over there. Okay, then we'll just do what they did, and then it evolved into making laws about everything. And then you follow the law, and of course, property law with inherited landowners and how much taxes you give to people and if you can allow people to move around and all that kind of shit. How it's all related to today. And so everything comes from history. Everything comes from history. And that's why every single class that you're taking in school needs to be a history class. And I mean, I majored in English in college, and none of my classes had anything. One class was history of Central America. That was the only history that I had. So it's like, are they trying to make us retarded? Are they retarded? What the fuck's going on here? But anyways, with all of the history class, and plus history is really interesting. Like it's something that kids could be interested in going to, but a class they could look forward to. Like, just like you're watching a miniseries. Oh, I wonder what happens next in the miniseries. I can't wait to tune in on Monday night to see what happens in the next episode of Tudors. Well, watching Tudors in the TV and listening to an instructor, a teacher in school, tell the story of Henry VIII could be just as interesting as watching the TV show The Tudors, or more so if you're more interested in it. So history can be a really interesting subject for kids to want to go and study and, want to show up at school and not drop out of school. There's a big dropout problem in school. And it's because it's really simple. Don't read too fucking much into it. Some people be like, oh yeah, kids these days are idiots, fucking. No, dude, kids drop out of school because they don't want to go to school anymore. Kids won't drop out of school if they want to go to school. It's that simple. And also they're always getting expelled. If you expel a kid from school, he's going to drop out. It's not rocket science. Or if you suspend kids all the time, they're going to eventually drop out. Oh, I saw you smoking a cigarette or smoking a joint behind the shed. Yeah, suspended. Oh, I wonder why all the kids are dropping out. It's like, Jesus, are you fucking retarded? Anyways, yeah, so if you make it interesting, it's all history. Yeah, I'm getting sidetracked big time, but the future, see, that's the title of this video. Future classes needs to be, future history needs to be one of the classes in school. Future history needs to be one of the classes. Because when I studied history in school, well, number one, I was never asked to give my opinion on anything. I remember in my history class in 10th grade, we were asked to do a presentation on something about history. And so I did they only give you 3 minutes or something. And you write a paper, but then you give your 3-minute presentation. And I did mine on Shinto religion of Japan, and also incense preparation. Oh my God, where the hell was I going with this? Oh my God, I totally lost track. But basically, yeah, with the future history, you need to. Oh, I know now. Well, we need to make it interactive. We need kids to be participating in school. And I was never asked to participate ever. I mean, ever in school. I was just supposed to sit there and watch the teacher do the thing. Blah, blah, blah. And then every once in a while, you get the few kids who like to talk, but they're always talking over each other and saying shit that I don't even remember what they're talking about. A lot of times it doesn't have anything to do with school, but when you ask kids to do stuff about history, it shouldn't be just retell the story of history, but it should be predict the future in history because and especially teach by example. Like get the teacher up there, and the teacher has to have an idea about the future, and so give a painting, a storytelling of, yes, in 10 years we're going to legalize marijuana because in the past they had alcohol was illegal, but then they realized that they were spending too much money throwing people in jail and it was causing wars. And nowadays the same thing's going on with all the wars in Mexico, the gang warfare and stuff with drugs and all the money that we could be taxing with marijuana and, and then all of the problems that, causes all these retards thinking that if you smoke weed, you're a bad person, you need to go in jail and you're going to burn hell for all eternity, all this stuff. And so therefore people are going to wake up and marijuana's going to be legal in the future. And that's why, like using the past as the map. You could predict wars. Like, yes, when in this example, when you put two countries together that shouldn't have been put together, then they had a war. Can't think of an example about that. But so that's why, that's why Timor eventually is going to have to be its own country because they're fighting. It'll be a little bit more difficult now since the world is changing so much, but you could even plug that into your history class. You could give all these historical examples about how people were totally wrong about the future. For example, when the Berlin Wall fell, 3 weeks before the Berlin Wall fell, they'd asked the prime minister of Germany when the Berlin Wall was going to fall, and he said, it's never going to fall. And then 3 weeks later, they decided to let the Berlin Wall come down, and they were going to let people go. And originally, they didn't even know how it was going to done. They were like, oh, okay, we'll have to stamp everybody in. So they're stamping them, and they're like, wait, why are we stamping you? Let's just let you go through. So then just let everybody go through, and thousands of people go through. And people say, oh, it's physically impossible to run less than 4-minute mile, and now all these people are running less than sub 4-minute miles. Oh, it's impossible to fly. Everybody's tried it. Nobody's ever going to fly, and then everybody flies. Oh, it's impossible to break the sound limit, and then the sound barrier, and now all these people are breaking the sound barrier. So then you could use that as a pattern for, oh, it's impossible. There's no life anywhere outside of the Earth, and but then we find out there's fossils on Mars with worms and stuff. Oh, there's no life at all anywhere on any other planets. And they find there's oceans on the, moons of Jupiter with water, with fish in there, obviously. Oh, there's no life at all. People who are like, oh, there's no life at all. Oh, there's no intelligent life anywhere. And then they find some, maybe SETI finds something. Or there's no life, come and visit us now. And then we start finding all the evidence about the aliens here, giving us messages in crop circles, sightings, everything, all kinds of stuff. And then you could use that to predict the future, and also in the past, how the world changed so much in the past. 100 years ago, there was no light. We as soon as the sun went down, you had to go to sleep because all you had was candles. But if you're poor, you don't have enough money to, buy all the candles all the time that are handmade and stuff. So you just go to bed, and when the sun goes down, when the sun comes up, you get up, and that's just how it goes. You've never been outside of the valley you're in because it's too expensive to go over there, and so you don't know anything about the people over there. But then, if somebody has been to China, oh my God, great adventure. But now the world has changed so much that we're all talking on cell phones anywhere you want. You can fly anywhere in the world, wherever you want. And, so then you could use that as patterning for, then therefore the future will be beyond recognition of what we are now. So then the aliens, that's why the aliens will come. It's beyond recognition of what we are now, but not beyond recognition from what, we think in the future. Or even world peace. Oh my God, I can't imagine world peace. I don't want that. It's too much, letting everybody, third world people fly to America, opening up the borders. What? No, that wouldn't work because of the terrorists and those bad people, but third worlders, they can't. But you think about how much the world is changing now with America, being with all the people of mixed races in America living together and getting along, and that's stuff that you couldn't imagine. Even 30, 40 years ago in the 60s, they had black people were segregated from white people. Even 15 years ago in 94 in South Africa, it was like that, And now we couldn't even imagine it being like that. So just put it 24 years in the future and shit that'll be going down that we can't even imagine now. It just keeps going. So see what I mean? That's futurology. So, but it could be really interesting for kids to do for school. You get the kids out there. This, hell, you give each kid a half hour to give their presentation, and you give every kid in the class a half hour to do it. Johnson goes first. He's going to give his idea. He's going to give his And, you know, they can come complete with slides, with little like animated or drawings of what the infrastructure they plan on being. Yes, Johnny says, here's Johnny's presentation on what the first half of the 22nd century is going to be like. And there's Susie's representation of the first half of the 21st century. And Johnson's representation, you know, and Hilgar. And so then all these, I mean, imagine how interesting that would be, you know, all these people with the different takes and people get ideas. And then by the time the last kid comes around, he'd be like, oh yeah, he'd be like taking ideas from all the other kids, you know. And it's fun that way. And then you can, and I mean, there's no limit to it. Then you could do the second half of the 22nd century. And then you could do the last half of the 21st century, or what the world's going to be like in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. And that motivates people to study history because they can, because their teacher gave them the idea of patterning how everything that happened in the past, and then that patterns into the future. So then when kids give their presentation, you know, like the goth, the emo, you know, Mildred could be like, I think there will be vampires everywhere walking around the world in 20 years because I uncovered this ancient manuscript from the Celtics witches from northern Europe that said that there were vampires walking the earth in Transylvania, and that the prophecy says that in 500 years they shall return, and, you know, there you go, they're studying history, you know, and then be like, okay, Mildred, where'd you get that thing, you know? I got it on Wikipedia file. Oh, wow. And then, you know, maybe Mildred could get, like, Helga into it, you know, and then they can learn about, and then they can start learning about Celts, and then they can learn about Wicca, and then by the time they're, like, 25, you know, Mildred dyes her black hair blonde, and then she becomes, like, a medicine woman, you know? But she originally started out being, like, a crazy goth who thought that vampires would walk the world. You know, just let the kids run wild, as long as they're serious, you know. The problem is you have to allow people to be serious. If somebody's serious, and see, okay, you need two factors. You need to expect people to be serious, and you need to expect them to do it publicly. Because somebody can say shit and act like they're serious and talk to you and say stupid shit privately to you. But if they know that they're getting recorded, or that, you know, their recording is going to get up on the internet, or they're doing it in front of a whole class, they're not going to say nearly as much stupid shit. They're not going to just act serious, but they're actually going to be serious after that, because, you know, so it's a good way to motivate kids to take themselves motherfucking seriously. Yeah. And plus you want to motivate people to be out there and, sharing their ideas about stuff. To get used to the idea, because, well, I guess that's another video entirely. So I should probably not go down that road. But and see, when people see, and then it's going to be pretty cool for kids to start predicting good things in the future, positive outcomes for the future. You know, people who do only the negative stuff, they do that stuff just for, you know, like apocalyptic movies and stuff like that. People do that for entertainment value, but they don't do it because they're fucking serious and they think that that's world's going to be like. And sure, I'm sure kids, you know, high school kids, they like to be goofy and silly, and they'll do lots of negative outcomes for the future, kind of like sci-fi, video game type of shit, zombies and stuff. Post-apocalyptic nuclear war, you know, that's fun for those kids to do, and let them do it, you know, let them, because as long as you motivate, you know, you tell them that they should give actual reasons for it based on history, they can do that. Oh yeah, we almost had the nuclear apocalypse in the Bay of Pigs, you know, and if it hadn't have been for Khrushchev backing down, then we would have had a nuclear apocalypse by now. And, you know, that's a valid idea, but there's going to be lots of kids also who are like, be thinking about positive things in the future. And more kids thinking about positive stuff in the future than negative stuff. I think younger people are more optimistic than older people. You know, they're just creative, and they like that fantastical, like, you know, zombies and stuff just for fun. But I think there's going to be plenty of kids out there giving their presentations for positive future. And when people give presentations for positive future, then that can tie into politics, and they can think, oh, yeah, well, let's bring that a little bit closer to 5 years in the future. And so if we're going to have the world that you're trying to paint for us, Rainbow, why, where there's freedom, there's no laws. In 50 years, there's going to be no laws. Chicks aren't going to have to wear bras. We're going to not have to apply for a visa to go to another country and all this stuff. And so then somebody could like bring up, but what kind of problems could that bring? And then they could, it basically makes you analyze the little things, all the little steps that we have to take politically to bring that world about that they want in the future. If you want all this absolute freedom and economic anarchy, then maybe the next presentation that you give could be a little bit closer in. So maybe in history class, maybe future history should be a class. I think future history should be a class that you have. It's one of your classes that everybody has from the entire length of their school term, from like 7th grade all the way to, or maybe from 1st grade all the way to 16th grade. It's always future history. And so you would start like the beginning of the year where you give your presentations, what's going to be like in 22nd century. And then you move yourself farther and farther and farther back in time to our present time. And so by doing that, you're kind of trying to, you're painting the steps in which everything will take. And then you can also do it from the present all the way up into the future. Like in 5 years is this, and then it'll evolve to this, and then you imagine it, and then you get there, and then you can adjust how things changed according to your plan, and what things came up that you didn't plan, and how off you were. And, of course, we would judge how off other people were in the past. We have there's all kinds of evidence of people trying to predict the future from the past, like from movies especially. There was some movie made in like 1930 that was about War of the Worlds or something, and it was like, oh yeah, factory workers, the different classes, and so they had the workers like underground, like pushing buttons, and because that's before they realized how powerful computers were going to get. So then now they don't have to have people pushing buttons and pulling levers to keep the machine going. You have the computer do that, and a lot of times people think that stuff like flying cars would have been here about 2000, but now they're not, and yeah. But they could be, maybe they would have been here if we hadn't have gotten like electric cars. Maybe the electric car definitely would have been here by now if we hadn't have gotten people against free energy in the mix, Yeah, so future is definitely part of history, and that's why I'm going to plug that into my timeline. My timeline is going to be very detailed in the past, and I'm going to learn a lot about the past in the process of making my timeline, and then of course I'm going to study my timeline and make videos with my timeline. But when I'm done with all of that, I'm going to expand it into the future and make it the future timeline. And I'm going to use everything that passed and happened in the past and draw it out into the future, and I'm going to predict the future in a whole bunch of detail, year by year, all the way up until like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years in the future. I bet y'all, just as much all the way to the future. To the end of our son's life. And every single year, I revamp it. So I would have all these different versions of future timeline. I would have 2011 version, the one I made, well, actually, I won't get started until like 2014 because that's when I'm going to be done with my timeline. 2014 version, then 2015 version, 2016 version, and then you can get back and you can look back in time and see like where I was wrong, where I was right. And then everybody does that. Everybody can have that. and you have students do it. It's part of their student curriculum. And then you could just compare who's right and who's wrong, and maybe somebody is right, and then it could be a way for them to be like, oh look, pump him up. Oh my God, this guy's got prophetic powers, and then maybe get him into the government then, because it's a good way to do meritocracy, because there's lots of people who are like, oh, I predicted the earthquake, I predicted the fall of the crashing of Columbus, I predicted that. But it's like, yeah, that's what you say, haha, whatever. Where's it documented? But if you have it on your timeline, it can be documented, Like this page was uploaded on 26th of February, 2013, but the incident didn't happen until 2019. You can predict the dates of certain things to happen. Like I predict that weed will become legal on September 22nd, 2019, I predict that crack will be legal on this date. And then obviously if everybody in the world is doing that, somebody's always going to be right, because all the different dates are going to be predicted for all the different events. So somebody's always going to be right. So they can be like, oh my God, I got right, and a lot of times it could be because it was just an accident. But what if somebody's right on more than one occasion? You know what I mean? So, it just ties all the other subjects together. It definitely ties politics together, because it helps us decide what we want, and it helps us figure out what our politicians are about. Like a lot of the politicians that are in charge now are pessimists. They're like, oh, we need to put a huge ass fucking wall between us and Mexico, so those goddamn dirty Mexicans ain't gonna come in and gonna take over. We gotta attack all those countries in the Middle East. We gotta take over Iraq and Afghanistan, because if not, they're gonna come over here in annihilation, So if you have those politicians, and then you look at their future timeline, and of course your future timeline is based on policies, that you want to happen, or you could have possible parallel universe future timelines. And see, that's why I've done video on the relationship between parallel universes in history, but you could have like possible future outcomes, if my, and like politicians could use that as part of their running campaign. They could be like, if my law doesn't pass, then this is what the future timeline is going to look like. But if my law does pass, then this is what the future is going to look like. And you have cause and effect all the way down the line into the future. And so of course, you can also tie that into to how people thought the future was going to be even a long time ago. Like the Christians back in the New Testament days, they thought that Armageddon was just around the corner. They're like, this Nero guy, he's killing all the Christians. But don't worry, our Christians, we're going to get pulled up into heaven because we bow down to Jesus. And it's going to happen just like in 10 years. So don't worry about it. Yay, But that never happened. So then nowadays you get all these doomsdayers. The end of the world's coming. It's on September 26th. Dun, 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 dun. And then that never comes. And you can be like, yeah, look, just a patterning. But stuff does happen. There's so many things you can do with future history. So future history definitely needs to be a class. All right, I think I'm done with that.